Hi, this is our Innovators. Today we're going to be making a painting together. This is going to be a painting for younger ages in terms of instruction. We're looking at about ages 6 to 11, but anyone can join in and have a great time painting. We're going to talk about some basic techniques, but first a couple rules to make our class a little extra fun and approachable. We want to make sure today that we know that we have a good workspace, so we're going to want someplace fairly quiet. Music's great, but let's have a place where we can focus, a place where we can understand that when we're painting, not every painting is going to come out exactly like this, and that's a good thing. We all want to have our own kind of version of this painting, and if we do make a mistake or something along the way, we're going to use that and turn it into something really fun. It's also going to help us learn because we're going to try some new techniques and brush strokes, and we want to be able to turn those into any type of really creative idea or pattern. And our last thing is to have fun. It doesn't have to be this picture. It wants to be the picture in your mind. So have some fun with it and just make what you want to make. Additional note for parents at home, if your children are working on this picture, we do ask that you please let them do the painting. It's really an instinct of ours to want to jump in and help, but really part of the process is for them to struggle to overcome their own sense of insecurity and trying something new and to make something amazing. So please let them, as much as possible, work on this picture. A little bit about what we're using today. I'm going to be using just a default set of cheap watercolors. You can get them a couple dollars at craft stores or supermarkets. A basic brush. There's generally two types of brushes we see are the flat tip brushes and the round. I'm going to use a flat brush just so we can cover the canvas easily. If you want to do fine details, sometimes a round is easier. And I'm using watercolor paper. You're going to want a thicker paper that can absorb some of that paint. So to start, I'm going to be doing a warm-up. For a warm-up, let's just practice what I talked about in terms of our ability to use certain types of strokes. And in particular, if we can see this picture, we see a lot of horizontal strokes and going sideways, back and forth across the page. This is going to be important because it allows us to open up the canvas and look like it's a wide view across. If we have strokes going up and down, it's also useful, but it might make it look like it's raining or something heavy. If we have lines going out to the side like a diagonal, then we'll see an effect more like a comic book where we see a character shouting and something as action lines are happening. But for this nice open scene, we're going to practice drawing lines side to side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking colors, any colors, let's just use a warm-up, and I'm going to take some yellow. And what I want to do is I want to try to draw a shape. Let's just draw a basic shape like a triangle. But what I'm going to do is try to draw only strokes side to side. So I'm going to start at the tip of my triangle and just drawing strokes side to side. I'm going to go like this, at a diagonal, get as much paint as you need, come back across the side, and then on the other side I'm going to make more strokes at this type of angle. I know it's very light, but we're going to add some more colors to it in just a second. And now we're going to have a triangle shape. So even though we're only stroking side to side, we're going to have our triangle shape. We don't want to go like this, even though it's very tempting, because we're not going to see these lines in the sky in nature or in water or anything else. So we want to try and have those same patterns if we think of waves or clouds going across the sky. So now we can even add another color to it. If you want to try blending colors, it can be great for a warm-up too. I can add some orange. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to try painting only side to side. And there's a triangle. We can fill it in. And we can make even darker colors as we go towards the center. If we want to get darker, we're just going to use more and more paint. We're not going to necessarily use black to blend it, because black is going to be very strong. The same as white. If we want a light color, we're just going to use lots of water to dilute it and let the actual white of the canvas be the white in our painting. So here's the triangle shape where we did painting only side to side. Let's try a circle. I'm going to start with getting a little more paint. And now for my circle, the same thing. I'm just going to make these sideways strokes. I don't want to draw any lines that aren't sideways, but I can still make a circle. And when we have these strokes, it makes it really easy to blend as well. So if I want to take on another color this time, maybe I'll blend it with some blue color. And again, we can blend these, and our orange and blue are actually not going to make a beautiful color together. But you can blend it any way you like. And again here, if you want a darker color, we're just going to add more paint to make it more saturated and vivid. And you can see we have some really neat effects there. So if you wanted to have something like water and light on a lagoon, where you have these weird reflections, we can do it like that. And we're going to have this really neat kind of consistency and continuation of our picture, because we're drawing with these sideways lines, always sideways. The last type of shape I'm going to do as part of our warm-up, square. That seems the easiest, but we're still going to be drawing only with sideways lines. This time let's use a green. And again, okay, for the top, that makes sense. But now for the sides, we're still just going to be going these little sideways lines. I guess I'll bump my other shape here. Now let's bump the side of here so it looks like it's behind it. Put on a little more paint so it's a little darker. Only sideways. So you can continue that on your own if you'd like. We're going to take a quick break before we get to our picture. Please try this technique as much as you like, and to really feel comfortable and confident with it, to draw only using sideways strokes. And again, sideways, I mean it's aligned with the paper. So if I think of the top of the paper as a horizontal stripe, I'm only going in that same direction with the brush, and I'm lifting the brush after each stroke. All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to get back to you in just a couple minutes. For now, practice your warm-ups, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Okay, and we're back. So we're going to be painting this picture. Just a couple of reminders. Firstly, I'm going to be using the flat brush today. You can have a round tip or a flat tip brush. I'm using the flat tip brush because it's going to help us make these long, wide strokes back and forth to better cover our canvas. And that these are just regular cheap paint trays that you can buy at really any craft store or supermarket even. The setup has changed a little bit, just so it's clear. This is still a piece of watercolor paper that has been taped onto a white background. So we still have our regular paper. We're going to start now on this project. I do want everyone to look and consider when we're painting what we can put in our own pictures. I here made a sky with some clouds and some trees, but you can put in whatever you want into your scene. If you want other things in your sky, like that show the weather. If you want other things in your ocean, we could put in, rocks, dolphins, mermaids. In your sky, you could have anything from other types of weather patterns to planes to rocket ships, anything that you can imagine. If you want it to be a sci-fi scene, maybe there's another sun, maybe there's moons or other amazing celestial things going on, galaxies in the background. Be creative. Anything that you want can be in your picture. Okay, so let's get started. What I want to do is first figure out where this horizon line is. I'm going to go straight across the paper where I'm going to want my horizon line. I'm going to be using a light color. I want as light as possible because this is going to be something bright and also easy to change. So I'm going to use a yellow. You can make your sky whatever color you want. I'm going to use this yellow color, and I'm going to go straight across my paper. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to make a thin line. I'm just going to go straight across my paper. Okay. So here we go, straight across. I don't want it too thick. This is just to see where my sky and water meet. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my sun. The sun, I'm going to make a half circle, but I don't want to paint like this, like an arch. Just like our warm-up, what I want to do is use only sideways lines. I'm going to start at the top of my sun. I'm making these little lines to the side. I'm going to figure out how it looks as half a circle. Now let's make this a little darker with yellow so we can see it nice and clearly. Again, I'm just using more paint. We don't need to do anything else to make it nice and vivid and bright. Making these little dashed lines out to the side. And the length of the dash doesn't matter too much because we can always extend it later and add other colors to blend it. So now we have this nice arch for our sun. Now we can take it and extend it a little further. We can just paint out to the sides. And if the paint gets a little dry like that, you can just add a little more water to it. I'm just dunking the brush once in the water. You don't need to swish it around. Just give it a little dunk. back and forth, nice long, always horizontal side-to-side strokes. Your brush is out pretty fast, so it's natural that you need lots of water for this part. And as we're doing this, you can see it kind of blends together all these little lines. Now, one trick I did in this picture, if you want to try, and it's a little hard to see here because it's very light, but when we see things that are hot, like on the air on a hot day coming off the street, we see those little zigzag lines. If you want to put a little zigzag in front of your sun, this is kind of a stylistic thing, but you can see it in lots of paintings. I'll pull in a little bit of paint here. And this will make it look like the sun has those wavy heat lines from a lazy, warm, sunny afternoon. It'll have a kind of neat effect on it. Again, doesn't need to be perfect, just some little lines that come across in front of our sun, any way you like. All right, so once we have these lines, and we have a good amount of yellow on the rest of our page, let's pick another color. I'm gonna pick orange now, and I'm gonna start spreading out my colors. So I'm gonna get my orange, and then I'm gonna leave a little bit of space here and start a little towards the middle of where my yellow and the edge of the paper are. I'm going to fill in more of that paper. You can still go all the way to the side if you want. We're just going to be covering it in layers. But I want some of that area with just that yellow to show where that sun is brightest. I'm just going to let that all mix together, and it blends really well when I'm going side to side like this, and I can have all those strokes just kind of fade in and blend in together. The drier your paint, again, the brighter, more vivid you'll see. We'll do the same thing on the other side here. Make sure your paint colors always overlap. If your yellow stopped a little early, make sure that the orange goes all the way over it. Then we get some nice blending. And we want to pull those colors all the way to the end of the page. Mine's taped down. Sometimes tape helps to make sure that the page doesn't lift off if it gets really wet. But if your paper does get a little bendy because it's wet, that's okay too. Just let it dry. Put it under a book. It'll get nice and straight. All right. Let's do a little more on the top. All right. And now let's pick another color. It's even darker than that. I'm going to go to a red. You don't need to wash off your brush. I'm just getting it a little wet to get the paint. And I'm going to start towards the top this time. And just like we did a circle for the sun, I'm going to make a circle kind of coming all the way down over the borders of the side of the paper to fill up that page on the edges with this darker color red.
Stop.
Just like before, we're making this arch shape, just like our sun, but on the outside. So we can think of it almost like a rainbow, right? A rainbow has that arch shape, and we're making our rainbow just out of these warm colors. If we use our imagination, maybe it would go further out and turn even more colors, and you could go all the way to blue. But for now, we're just going to use these nice warm colors for this nice warm sunset. Again, only these little lines that are going sideways. It's going to let them all blend together. All right. So now we have a nice, colorful sky. Now here, I put some clouds in my sky. The reason these clouds look so dark is because if we think about putting our hand in front of the sun when we look at it, right? The hand is going to cast a shadow because the light is coming right at us. So if I put my hand here, the hand's going to look really dark if we do it in the actual sky. The same thing with the clouds. The clouds are coming between us and the sun. All the light is going to be on the back side of the cloud. So this side that we see is going to look very dark. So I'm going to use a dark color. I'm going to use purple. I wouldn't use black, but you can use any dark color you want. I'm going to use the purple. Black is a little too strong, and we want it to save it for the other things like the trees, which are very close to us. So let's take some purple, and we can just kind of make these fluffy patterns here. I'm just going to do that by kind of just dabbing some paint on here. My purple's very wet. It's a little drippy. If your paint is a little bit drippy, you can use a paper towel or something. And you can dab it. It will take the paint off, but that's okay because you can just add some more right back on. And just like we talked about, sometimes these things happen and it means, okay, so a mistake happened, no problem. Well, we'll just make our cloud a little bit bigger. And now when it's bigger, it'll be large enough to cover up any area that dripped on the bottom. So I'll just go right around that. And that's how we turn something that we didn't mean to do into just part of our picture. Never a problem. Now I don't necessarily want my cloud to be the same color all the way through, right? Because clouds have light and dark fluffy parts to them because they have those round curves. So it's okay if some parts of the cloud are darker than others. It'll help it look like it's fluffy and lumpy. Okay, so let's go on like that one, just like that. Let's go on to this side. I'm going to do just like here. I'm going to start at the edge and have a cloud kind of overlapping the side of my picture. And again, I'm just using this purple color. Okay, I can do a couple little clouds just like before. Having this one now come out underneath it a little further. I'm still using those little sideways strokes. This will give that effect that the cloud is moving, flowing in the sky with that same direction of the sky. Pretty good. And now I made these two little clouds in this picture. It might be a little difficult to see, but these clouds are a little bit lighter than these ones. You can see these ones have some very dark purple. Here's this little lighter purple. And that makes it look like the cloud is a little bit further back because the further things are going to get away from us, they're going to seem a little lighter, a little harder to see. And we can do the same type of effect here. We'll make some little clouds. We can add a little bit of water to them. Make them little nice light clouds. You can put them anywhere you like. I'm just going to draw a similar place as before. We're just going to go right back to our cloud. I did put in some clouds up here, just so you know. We don't really need to worry too much about where the clouds are because the clouds are just going to float around. It could be the same set of clouds as the wind comes. Maybe it's just blowing them along. The clouds wherever you want to show your clouds. And that's all I'm going to do for the sky for now. But it is important that we did the sky first. And that's because the sun and the sky, nothing really changes them that much, right? The sky is going to look the same depending on the sun, but we have our sun. The water, on the other hand, is going to change because it's going to show the reflection of the sky. So we don't want to draw our water before our sky is totally done. That way we know what to put in, if you want to show the reflection of the sun, if you want to show shadows from the clouds. All these things are going to be dependent on our sky. So we do draw the sky first for that reason. So let's draw the water now. For the water, I'm going to start with a light color. I'm going to use blue for my water. I'm going to start with a nice light blue. And again, you can use pretty much any blue, but we want to use lots of water when we do it to make it very thin. And when I'm drawing, I want to consider the sun. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a shape almost like an upside down V where the sun's reflection is. But I'm not going to draw any specific line because I'm drawing only side to side. I'm going to leave that space there of that kind of upside down V shape. I'm going to come in here. Again, only side to side. I'm going to fill in this area here. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Here, I'm going to start close to the sun. Put in some water. And the reason it's an upside down V is just because of perspective, right? As things get further away from us, they seem smaller. So even if this is a straight line like a road is going to seem smaller as it gets further away from us. So this path of light coming from the sun is going to be in that same shape. Alright. So we have our little V shape there. I'm going to fill in some more of this here. Great. Now let's pick another color, because water has all these different interesting colors in it. I'm going to add a little bit of a green. I'm going to use a darker green in my water, just to give it a little bit of interesting pattern and change. So I'm just going to put some green here, green over here. Again, we're only using these side-to-side strokes. I'm not going to cover the whole thing though, because some areas are going to be a little more blue, some are going to be a little more green. It's going to give us some really interesting patterns and colors. Okay, and now I'm going to take one more color. I'm going to take a darker blue. Not too much of it, but if you have a darker blue, that's fine. You can use darker directly. You can add a little bit of a black to your blue if you need. If you don't have a bunch of different blues, you can mix them. If you do mix them, try mixing them in the top of the tray. So for example, if I want to mix a lighter blue here, and if I took a little black, I could mix that in. And that you could make a dark blue there. Try not to mix it in here just in case you need your color again. But I'm just going to use the darker blue that I have here. And not too much of that, just some little spots. Even smaller as they get further away from us. A little goes a long way. And we can see now, since we're only going side to side, these brush strokes are starting to look like the waves. And that's really helpful. Kind of gives us that impression of the waves without having to actually draw each and every little wave. But sometimes it is nice to draw a couple direct waves. So let's do that now. We're actually going to make a couple of these little waves that come in front of the sun. And all I'm doing is going to draw some lines, some horizontal lines. Everything's just straight across. And as they get closer and closer to the sun, they're going to get smaller, because these waves are the same waves, but they're far, far away. They're going to be nice and big as they get closer to us. Okay, so we have little waves in the background and nice bigger waves as they come towards us. Again, they're just sideways lines. And then, since we have this line here, if you want a sharper line, that's fine. If you want the sun to look like more, a little bit more wavy and choppy, we can pull this in and kind of blend it a little bit now. Blend some of these little lines that we have, just with a little bit of water. Just taking the brush and a bit of water. And going back and forth. There we are. And the last little effect I had here, if you want, if your water is okay being a little bit green, if you want to put a little bit of the yellow of the sun in your water, you can do that. If your water is very blue, the yellow and blue will mix, so be careful of that. But you can put a little bit of yellow in there. Again, little teeny dots. If they're further away, you can make them a little longer. If they're a little closer. And you can put a little bit of yellow from the sun in there. And if you go over blue, it will turn green, but that's okay. Because there's already green in our water. You can make it as yellow as you want. All right. Some beautiful sun casting on our water. Okay, so now that we have our water and our sun, now we can start decorating our scene in the front with all these other interesting things. Now, this shape here, we don't see the full tree, we just see this black part of the tree. We're gonna call that a silhouette. That means it's the shape of the tree. We see the outline or the outline of the shape, but the tree itself is dark. So to do that, I'm gonna use black. I'm gonna just use the actual black here. I'm gonna keep it pretty dry and thick and dark. I'm almost gonna use it like an ink. And this is going to show the shape of that tree as if it was very, very close to us because, again, we're basically seeing the shadow directly on the tree. The tree is blocking the light of the sun. I want to make sure it's nice and dark. And to draw my tree, first I want to plan it. So I'm going to think about the shape of this line. It's basically a curved line to the side. So if I look here, I'm going to try and draw a curved line, just a thin one. I'm going to use the edge of my brush. And that's going to be the line that shows me where my tree is. Now I have to think about the shape of this tree. These are kind of like upside down triangles, right? So I'm going to draw a little straight line, and then down, down, a little triangle. A straight line, down, down. I'm going to do that following that line I just drew. If you need more paint, you can always get more paint. Okay, and then once we have our triangles, we can fill them in. We're going to have that great shape of a palm tree. You can always touch them up, connect your lines if there's any that are messy, but palm trees are a little messy. So that looks pretty good to me. Same thing now we're going to do with our the leaves, the palm fronds. I'm going to do a curved line in the direction of my frond. So let's just get a nice little curved line like that. We have a curved line coming out here. I went over the tape or whatever's holding my paper, that's okay. It might go off the page. We'll still see it, the edge of it. And we can have one go up here. They don't have to go in the same direction every time. Again, just palm fronds. They can go anywhere you want. And then once I have the direction of the line, I'm going to make basically a zigzag. And this is going to be the leaf. So zigzag pointing forwards. Just a little zigzag shape. And then I'll do a zigzag on the other side. Same thing for each line. Sometimes I go off the paper, that's okay. Okay, and just like before now, let's fill it in, just like we did for the trunk of our tree. Now some people do ask, can I just do this with a marker or something like that? And you can. If your picture is totally dry, you could go over this with a marker. But it is useful to learn the technique of how to paint with black. Because first of all, the brush lets you make some really fun strokes. And you can get fancy brush pens. One nice brush pen will cost as much as this whole kit of paint, but you can do that. But another reason why it's nice to learn to use black like this is because, in a second we'll see, the further things get away from us, just like we talked about these clouds, we want these kind of dark purple and light purple clouds. With the trees or other silhouettes, as things get farther away from us, we might want different shades of black and gray. So when we put other things in our scene, maybe we'll want them to be a lighter or darker black. So that's one reason why it's nice to be able to do this with the black paint instead of using the marker. But if you do want everything the same black, marker will work. Okay, so we have one palm tree there, and just like this picture, I have two, so let's make another one. And we can go right over this one. You don't have to be too precious about it. I want the other one bending a little bit in the other way, so they're a little pair of friends. I don't want them to be the same height though. if they match perfectly, it won't look as believable, right? So here, I have two here. Let's make this one a little taller. I'm going to start up here. Start at the top and work down. That way you know ahead how tall you want your tree. If you start at the bottom, it's hard to know when to stop. So I'm going to start here. Make a little line. And that line is going to show us again where our tree is. So now we can make a little straight line across. We get into a triangle pointing down. One more at the bottom there. We're just going to make some triangles. Now we're just going to use these simple shapes because they're very easy for us to remember and make. When we hit something else, that's okay. Let's go right over it because it's just one big shadow. All the way up the tree. And you can see when I make my triangles, I'm making them perpendicular. They're going directly across. So that the triangles follow the shape of the tree. And just like before now, we're going to fill them in. This paint is very dry, so it's not going to spread as much, but that's good because it'll give us that nice, deep, dark black color, or lack of color. And we're just going to fill these in. When we get to our leaves, it's okay if we go over them, because again, it's just one big shadow. Okay. And just like before now, to draw the fronds, we're going to decide what type of angles they go as a curve. So I'm going to draw some curved lines that are going to show where the palm fronds go. Further down. I'm going to start with those. And again, we're going to make zigzag lines to show where the actual leaves are on these fronds. And even though I'm doing detailed work, because I'm using all straight lines here, it's pretty easy to use flat brush instead of the round brush. So you can use either, but I'm just going to keep using this same flat brush. Okay, and just like before, let's fill them in. Just going to take a little touch of water, don't take too much, but just enough so that you can use your black easily. You don't want it too wet. Okay, I'm going to make our tree a little bit bigger here. Great. Now we have some nice palm trees, and then the last thing I had on this side was a little boat. The boat, we're just going to make it with some really simple shapes. If you want to put a boat on your water, I'm going to draw a little straight line across. Again, the boat's going to be far away, so I'm not going to make it too big. Let's make a little straight line across. And then I'm going to make some tiny little lines downwards. Again, like the top of a upside down triangle, except instead of going all the way to a point, we're just going to go across the bottom. A little trapezoid. Now I'm going to draw a vertical line for the sail, for the mast. And then I'm going to make a triangle using that shape. And connect it. There we go. And let's make one more triangle in the front. This one's going to be a little smaller. And just like before, we have our boat now. I'm going to fill it in with some black. Here's where a smaller brush might help you. I'm just going to use the edge of this one. It's going to work fine. If you wanted to, you could even put in some more blue and make some ripples in your water. But that's it. That's our picture for today. You can keep going on and add anything else you'd like. And thank you very much for working with me. I hope you had a great time and are making some wonderful art on your own. We'll see you next time in class. Bye-bye.